in this beautifully seamless run wherever you go. It turns the roads that you know into a whole different level. It feels like it's been an age since the first pictures of this carbon-clad beauty were released, and so much has been said about it. We can add to that as we go along, but the only really important thing for you and me is to go out there and find out what this bike is all about. M1000R BMW. What are we going to say about that then? Well, I can tell you, I've already been out this morning, and I can tell you this much: first time you get to grips with this motorcycle, it will leave you speechless. It is absolutely effing phenomenal. It's so concentrated that you can't even feel yourself think anymore. In fact, it brings out all of that instinctive ability that you've either got or you haven't got, and just sews it together in this beautifully seamless run wherever you go. It turns the roads that you know into a whole different level. It's madness on two wheels, and it keeps shouting at you. It's like the silent TFT screen, just going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Look at it. It's both happy and upset at the same time. I had a feeling I was going to like this bike, but I did not know I was just going to fall in love with it. It's like a scalpel. Its responses are razor sharp. It knows where you want to go. As long as you get your head up and look out of the corner at the direction you want to head in, it will basically take you there. In terms of input, it doesn't need any. It's psychic. It just reads the road for you and takes you there. Oh my word, you could get into a lot of trouble with something like this. The way it turns into a corner and holds a line is, I don't know what the right word is. What is the word? Unbelievable? Bloody magic? Ridiculous? Oh, I want one of these. I don't care if it makes sense. I just bloody want one. So the corners say slow, and the bike says no. Hello. Such a phenomenal day. Everyone's out. This is what we've been waiting for, both in terms of weather and in terms of this new motorcycle, to find out if it lives up to its promise, and by God, it certainly does. Oh, thank God, 20 miles an hour. Well, let me catch my breath and say some kind of review type of stuff. Breathe. So, review stuff. It looks the absolute business. The £5,500 worth of carbon that's hanging off this bike just lifts it a level. There's nothing in its class that looks like it or feels like carbon weave, which is the stuff that wet dreams are made of. The bar end mirrors are rock solid and have completely changed my mind towards bar end mirrors. They are fantastic. Milled aluminium, they do the job. They do the job, and that's what bar end mirrors generally don't. This is basically BMW super naked motorcycling velvet. The quick shifter is silky all the way up the box, all the way down. It doesn't miss a beat, unlike me. But then I'm giddy and full of adrenaline. The brakes, I don't know what you can say about them. I'm not into stoppies and sort of stunts. I don't have the skill for it. I leave it to people that know what they're doing. But I'm pretty certain you could stand it on its nose if you wanted it to. For my purposes, the engine braking and the downshift through the revs, just the general way the engine responds up and down, kind of carries the speed down to the speed you want to go into the corner. I'm not having to do a lot of braking unless I come up behind a car or something pulls out. It's cold, it's beautiful and cold, but these heated grips just purring away on position 1 are keeping my hands nice and toasty, and I'll probably have nothing sensible to say because we're off again. And this bike finds BMW at the top of their game. They really have brought their A game, and you have to do the same. So it's about focus and precision. It asks for both. But what a rewarding piece of equipment. By God, it really is. Scotland's some of the best roads there are. It's like riding a giant black angry wasp. It's so sharp. It's just so sharp, and the way it picks up and goes. It's quite disturbing, but incredibly rewarding. It just feels like the whole world is going backwards. As this unbelievable piece of equipment throws you forwards into your future, which I hope will be incredibly bright. It digs deep. At no point does it ever feel like you're really testing the limits of this bike. Certainly not on the road. This is designed for greatness. And the public highway is just something it does on the way there. Suspension is fantastic. I'm only running the bike in road. I don't know that it needs anything more from me at this point. We're technically running it in. What I have noticed, and is surprising me, is that these wings do actually do something. So instead of the front going light, as you would expect when you accelerate quite aggressively, we're just reining it in on the straights. You don't need to go quick on the straights. Yeah, instead of the front going light and kind of wanting to lift, which I'm sure it would, then the front end seems to stay pretty planted, which I like. This bike is an absolute delight. You would never you get tired of doing this. Sometimes you get a bit jaded riding bikes all the time. Well, not all the time, I'm not riding bikes all the time. 5 days a week I'm working hard for a living. On the one day you do get to go and play, this thing just gives you a great big shot in the arm. This shouldn't be possible. I love this thing. This is not a very objective review, and for that I do apologise. But then a bike like this should be. How does it feel? What does it do for you? How does it make you feel? And do you love what you're doing? The answer is yes, and awesome, and yes. It's going to be more technical, doesn't give a toss. Oh my god, it's just such a delight. It carves through things like a chainsaw through mud. Is that a thing? I don't know. Ah. Sounds more like a fighter plane than any sort of a motorcycle. Oh, yeah. Horrible mud all over the road. Ah, who leaves that there? Smells like, well, it smells like what it is. Manure! Lots of manure all over my super sticky tyres. And I don't want that. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Absolutely, unbelievably brilliant. Wow. So, hello, enjoy your run. This has all of the functions you would want from a modern day BMW. You've got your keyless, you've got your riding modes, which you can see up here. Movable on the fly. We've got rain, road, dynamic, race, and then in there will also be the Race Pro mode. If you can stretch the legs of this bike, even in road mode, then you are a man of serious, or indeed a woman, of serious skill and intent. You've got your heated grips over on the right, which I'm just running gently on one. There's no hand guards. It's still the beginning of April. These little creature comforts make your life oh so much happier. We need them. We need warm mittens. Otherwise you can't caress these billet aluminium levers. This thing is an absolute joy. You've got your cruise control. There you go, cruise control. We can switch it on. We can set it. Flick it to the right. Set it to speed. The bike just cruises at the speed that you've set. A little bit alarming because I suppose technically you could take your hands off the bars. I don't know if that's legal or illegal, but you can do a yeah, all of that. Perfect for average speed cameras. So average speed cameras, whatever they are, you can set them, and it's actually quite satisfying for doing a review. You can relax a little bit. Nobody's pushing anything. So cruise control, fantastic. Incrementally you can go up by pressing it. Incrementally you can come back down again by pressing it. You can nudge the throttle forwards and it will cancel. You can flick it back towards you to resume. It's a fantastic system and it works incredibly well, as you'd expect from a premium BMW. So we'll flick that off and that's it off. Don't need cruise control. You've got your menu options here. No point going into that at this point while we're riding along. The suspension is a gem. I haven't actually had any need at all to flick it into dynamic, which is a firmer setting. You can do that, set the bike up. but the road setting is very well judged for, I mean, our roads are not fantastic, but it's very well judged for your average piece of tarmac. It just soaks up everything. It's quite firm, but more importantly, you can feel what's going on under the bike. Gives you a lot of feedback. I'm guessing some of that is down to these carbon wheels and the lack of unsprung weight, which is also what helps this bike to turn very sharply, very quickly, very accurately. Quick shifter, as I said, it's silky all the way down, it's silky all the way up, it doesn't miss a beat. I generally quite enjoy using the clutch, but on this bike it doesn't make any sense at all. The quick shifter is phenomenal, and you just get into the swing of it ever so quickly. There are two things that I do not like about this motorcycle. So give credit where credit's due, and also pick fault where you have to. So two things. One of them is that it feels like the tick over, the idle, is just set a little bit too high. So the throttle response is fantastic, unlike that KTM Super Duke R that just made me feel like I was on a weird kind of stilted fairground ride. I almost made me feel travel sick. This is linear and smooth and direct and responsive. You would want that from a BMW. We've come to expect it, and that's exactly what you get. Silky. However, just initially it feels like it's ticking over too high, just under 2000 sometimes, and because of that it feels like you're rolling the throttle forwards as if you've still got it on slightly when you don't. I think that's it. So you have to recalibrate your brain. It's not causing a problem, but it just feels like the throttle's not fully closed. So it's a small thing, and it might just be that this bike, it's new, running it in, hey, maybe it's that. And the second thing is, when you're in situations like this, because this bike is perfectly good for everyday use, it's comfortable, the riding position is fantastic, I've got lots of room for my legs, I've got a decent reach to the bars, I've got very little weight on my wrists, which you wouldn't have thought for a naked bike. So it's super comfortable. You could use this every day. You could go in and out of town, you could go to work, you could do whatever the heck you want with it, because it's got that bandwidth, that extra level of depth to its abilities. And because of that, I don't know if you watch horse racing. I do watch horse racing because my wife likes watching horse racing, and she's an unexpectedly skillful gambler, especially on things like the Grand National. She doesn't bet often, but when she does, uncannily she seems to win. So I end up watching horse racing, and at the beginning, when they're going round and round the paddock and they're just getting ready to go into those stall things, you've got these tiny little men trying to rein in, I don't know, what's a horse weigh? 400 kilos? I'm guessing. Someone can tell me. Tiny little man trying to rein in 400 kilos of solid horse that has spent the last 5 years learning to do nothing but run as fast as it can in a straight line. And frankly, it looks like bloody hard work holding them back in that initial pre-race tussle between the jockey and the horse. Always looks like they are working very hard, and this bike has a sense of that as well. It feels like it just wants to go, and go properly. And this kind of urban domesticity kind of, it feels like you're holding it back a little bit. You know, I'm going to go round the roundabout again because that was just bloody brilliant. It's that kind of a thing. Sorry, there's no need for this sort of nonsense. yeah, this bike feels like you're always holding it back. And I suppose you are in a way. Oh dear. Just behave yourself. What a mental piece of equipment. And so we reach the end of the day and some form of a conclusion, which is not an easy thing to do with something that has this depth and bandwidth and capability about it. The carbon pack is £5,500 and it's absolutely stunning. This is like carbon armored karma. I say that because this bike is a riposte to all of those people out there who rode around in the super nakeds and the nakeds and said the S1000R doesn't have enough power, 165 horsepower, and people got upset about that. They were saying it's not enough, all the other super nakeds are putting out too much. They kept poking and poking and poking, and if you keep poking a German precision engineer, what you get is a big fat punch in the face with 210 horsepower, and that's basically what this motorcycle is. Is it too much? I've heard some people say it's too much. I don't think so. It's kind of pointless in the way a £30,000 Rolex watch is pointless, because you don't need it to tell the time anymore. Things have moved on. We don't actually need to check out something on our wrist. We've got a phone that gives us all the information we need, but do you want one? Absolutely you do. Do I want one? Would I have one? I would have one in a heartbeat. It is a fantastically competent and just right out there. It's just out there on the fringes of motorcycling. I'm so glad that they made it, and I'm very pleased that I've had a chance to at least dip my toe in the water, because this bike's restricted. You've got a rev limiter, 8,000 revs. God only knows what it does above that, but hopefully I'll get a chance to find out later in the year once this is actually run in and got some miles on it. It's been quite a day on every front. So if you like this, and I absolutely loved it, then like us and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week.